Lord Shri Krishna, Son of God,
O all-pervading personality of God,
O all-pervading personality of
I
Godhead,
offer my respectful obeisances unto you.
I offer my respectful obeisances unto
I
you.
meditate upon Lord Shri Krishna because he is the absolute truth,
I meditate upon Lord Shri Krishna because the absolute
and the
truth,
primeval cause of all causes,
and the primeval cause of all
of the
causes,
creation, sustenance, and destruction of the manifested universes.
of the creation, sustenance, and destruction of the manifested universe.
He is directly and indirectly conscious of all manifestations.
He is directly and indirectly conscious of all manifestations. And he is independent because there is no other cause beyond him. It's she only who first imparted the Vedic knowledge unto the heart of Brahmaji, the original living being. By him every great sages and demigods are placed into illusion.
As one is bewildered by the illusory representations
As one is bewildered by the illusory representation
of water seen in fire or land seen on water,
of the water seen to fire, land seen to water,
only because of him do the material universes,
only because of him do the material universe,
temporarily manifested by the reactions of the three modes of nature,
temporarily manifested by the reaction of the three,
appear factual although they are unreal.
appear factual, although they
I therefore meditate upon him, Lord Shri Krishna,
are therefore meditate upon him, Lord Shri
who
Krishna.
is eternally existent in a transcendental abode,
His eternal existence, the transcendental of
which is forever free from the illusory representations of the material world.
which is forever free from illusory representation of material.
I meditate upon him, for he is the absolute truth.
I meditate upon him, for he is the absolute truth.
Dharma projita kaityavutra,
Dharma prujita kaitavotra,
paramo nirmatsaranam satam,
parmo nirmasharanam satam,
vedyam vastavam atra vastu,
vedyam vastavam astravastu,
shivedam tapatrayon mulanam,
shivadam taputrayom lanam,
Srimad Bhagvate Mahamuni Krite,
Srimad Bhagavate Mahamuni
Kim
Krite,
Vaparir Ishwaraha,
Kim va paririshvara,
Sadgavidi Avarudyate Tra,
Sadhyavarudya Varudya Titra,
Krite Bihi Sususabis Takshana,
Kritivi Shushushubhista Kyanat,
completely rejecting all religious activities which are materially motivated.
completely rejecting all religious activities which are material
This
motivated.
Bhagavata Purana propounds the highest
This
truth,
Bhagavad Purana propounds the highest truth,
which is understandable by those devotees who are fully pure in heart.
which is understandable by those devotees who are fully
The
pure. in
highest
heart.
truth is reality distinguished from illusion for the welfare of all.
The highest truth, the reality distinguished from illusion for the welfare.
Such truth uproots the threefold misery.
Such a truth uproots the threefold misery.
As soon as one attentively and submissively hears the message of Bhagavatam,
As soon as one attentively and submissively hears the message of Bhagavatam,
by this culture of
by
knowledge,
this culture of
the
knowledge,
Supreme Lord is established within his heart.
the Supreme Lord is established within his
Nigama kapaturur galitam phalam,
Nigama kalpatoror galitam phalam,
sukhamukad amrita dravya samyatam,
Sukamakadamrita Dravisangitam,
pibata bhagavatam rasam alayam,
Pibata Bhagavatam Rasamarayam,
muhur aho raskabu vibhavakaha.
Muraho Rasikabu Vibhavuka.
O expert and thoughtful men, relish Srimad Bhagavatam,
O expert and thoughtful man, relish Srimad Bhagavatam,
the mature fruit of the desire to read Vedic literatures.
the mature fruit of the desired tree of Vedic
It
literature.
emanated from the lips of Sri Sukadeva
It
Goswami.
emanated from the lips of Shishukadeva Goswami.
Therefore, this fruit has become even more tasteful.
Therefore, this food has become even more
Although its
tasteful.
nectarian juice was already relishable for all,
Although its nectarian juice was already relishable for all,
including liberated souls.
including liberated souls.
Shinvatam Swakata Krishna,
Shambhantam Swakata Krishna,
Punya Shravana Kirtana,
Punya Shravana Kirtana,
Vidyantaksto Hi Bhadrani,
Vyadyantasto Hiya Bhadrani,
Vidunati Sritsatam.
Vidunati Suritsatam.
To hear about Krishna, or to hear about Krishna from Vedic literatures,
To hear about Krishna from the Vedic literature,
or to hear from him directly through the Bhagavad Gita,
or to hear from it directly through the Bhagavad Gita,
is it self-righteous activity.
is a self-righteous activity.
And for one who hears about Krishna,
And from who hears about Krishna,
Lord Krishna is dwelling in everyone's heart,
Lord Krishna is dwelling within everyone's
acts
heart,
as a best-wishing friend,
acts as the best wishing
and purifies the devotee who constantly engages in hearing of him.
and purifies the devotee to constantly engage in hearing from him.
Nasta presu bhadresu
Nasta praishva bhadishu
nityam bhagavata sevaya
nityam bhagavata seva
bhagavati uttamasloke
bhagavati uttamas
bhaktir bhavati naistaki.
bhakti bhavati nistiki.
In this way, a devotee naturally develops his dormant transcendental knowledge.
In this way, the body naturally develops dormant transcendental knowledge.
As he hears more about Krishna from the Bhagavatam
As he hears more about Krishna from the Bhagavatam
and from the devotees,
and from the devotees,
he becomes fixed in the devotional service of the Lord.
he becomes fixed in devotional service to the Lord.
Tadarajastamo bhava
Tadarajastamo bhava
kamaloba dayaschaye
kamalobhadayascha
cheta etar anavidam
jeta etaranavi
stitvam sattve prasidati.
citam prasidati.
By development of devotional service,
By development of divorce,
one becomes freed from the modes of passion and ignorance,
one becomes freed from the modes of passion
and thus material lust and avarice are diminished.
thus material lust and avarice are diminished.
Evam prasanna manaso
Evam prasana manaso
bhagavat bhakti yogataha
bhagavad bhakti yoga
bhagavat tattva vijnanam
bhagavad tattva vijnana
mukta sangasya jayate.
mukta sangasya.
When these impurities are wiped away,
These impurities are wiped
the
away.
candidate remains steady in his position of pure goodness,
The candidate remains steady in pursuit,
becomes enlivened by devotional service,
becomes enlivened by devotional service,
and understands the science of God perfectly.
and understands the science of God perfectly.
Vidyate hridaya grantis,
Vidyate hridaya granti,
chidyante sarvasamsaya,
chidyante sarvasam,
shiyante chasya karmani,
yante sachakarmani,
drishta evat manishwari.
drushta evanit manishvari.
Thus, Bhakti Yoga severs the hard knot of material affection
Thus the Bhakti Yoga serves the heart of material affection
and enables one to come at once to the stage of a samsayam samagram,
and enables us to come at once to the stage of a samsham samangrama,
understanding of the supreme absolute truth personality of Godhead.
understanding of the supreme absolute true personality of God.
Therefore, only by hearing from Krishna or from his devotee in Krishna consciousness
Therefore, only by hearing from Krishna or from his devotees in Krishna consciousness
can one understand the science of Krishna.
can one understand the science of Krishna.
Srimad Bhagvatam, Canto 2, Chapter 1, the first step in God realization. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Translation: O my Lord, the all-pervading personality Godhead, I offer my respectful obeisances unto you. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Vasudevaya means to Krishna, the son of Vasudeva. Since by chanting the name of Krishna, Vasudeva, one can achieve all the good results of charity, austerity, and penances, it is to be understood that by the chanting of this mantra, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, the author or the speaker or any one of the readers of Srimad Bhagavatam is offering respectful obeisances unto the Supreme Lord Krishna, the reservoir of all pleasure. In the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, the principles of creation are described, and thus the first canto may be called creation. Similarly, in the second canto, the post-creation cosmic manifestation is described. The different planetary systems are described in the second canto as different parts of the universal body of the Lord. For this reason, the second canto may be called the cosmic manifestation. There are 10 chapters in the second canto, and in these 10 chapters, the purpose of the Srimad Bhagavatam and the different symptoms of this purpose are narrated. The first chapter describes the glories of chanting, and it hints at the process by which the neophyte devotees may perform meditation on the universal form of the Lord. In the first verse, Sukadeva Goswami replies to the questions of Maharaj Parikshit, who asked him about one's duties at the point of death. Maharaj Parikshit was glad to receive Sukadeva Goswami, and he was proud of being a descendant of Arjuna, the intimate friend of Krishna. Personally, he was very humble and meek, but he expressed his gladness that Lord Krishna was very kind to his grandfathers, the sons of Pandu, especially his own grandfather, Arjuna, and because Lord Krishna was always pleased with Maharaj Parikshit's family, at the verge of Maharaj Parikshit's death, Sukadeva Goswami was sent to help him in the process of self-realization. Maharaj Parikshit was a devotee of Lord Krishna from his childhood, so he had natural affection for Krishna. Sukadeva Goswami could understand his devotion. Therefore, he welcomed the questions about the king's duty. because the king hinted that worship of Lord Krishna is the ultimate function of every living entity. Sukadeva Goswami welcomed the suggestion and said, because you have raised questions about Krishna, your question is most glorious. The translation of the first verse is as follows. Shri Sukha Uvacha Variyan Esate Prasna Krita Loka Hitam Nripa Atmavid Samata Pumsam Shrotavya Para. Translation. Sri Sukadeva Goswami said, my dear king, your question is glorious because it is very beneficial to all kinds of people. The answer to this question is the prime subject matter for hearing, and it is approved by all transcendentalists. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Even the very question is so nice that it is the best subject matter for hearing. Simply by such questioning and hearing, one can achieve the highest perfectional stage of life. Because Lord Krishna is the original Supreme Person, any question about him is original and perfect. Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said that the highest perfection of life is to achieve the transcendental loving service of Krishna. Because questions and answers about Krishna elevate one to that transcendental position, the questions of Maharaj Parikshit about Krishna philosophy are greatly glorified. Maharaj Parikshit wanted to absorb his mind completely in Krishna, and such absorption can be effected simply by hearing about the uncommon activities of Krishna. For instance, in the Bhagavad Gita, it is stated that simply by understanding the transcendental nature of Lord Krishna's appearance, disappearance, and activities, one can immediately return home back to Godhead and never come back to this miserable condition of material existence. It is very auspicious, therefore, to hear always about Krishna. So Maharaj Parikshit requested Sukadeva Goswami to narrate the activities of Krishna so that he could engage his mind in Krishna. The activities of Krishna are non-different from Krishna himself. As long as one is engaged in hearing such transcendental activities of Krishna, he remains aloof from the conditional life of material existence. The topics of Krishna, Lord Krishna, are so auspicious that they purify the speaker, the hearer, and the inquirer. They are compared to the Ganges waters which flow from the toe of Lord Vishnu. Wherever the Ganges waters go, they purify the land and the person who bathes in them. Similarly, Krishna Katha, or the topics of Krishna, are so pure that wherever they are spoken, the place, the hearer, the inquirer, the speaker, and all concerned become purified. Srila Prabhupada, Patita Pavani Ki Jai. So this is a very wonderful beginning of the second canto. And Srila Prabhupada very nicely mentioned the name Krishna many, many times in this purport to text 1. Let me see if I can count how many times. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, huh? 17 times. Okay, 17 times. So, I don't think there's any doubt who he's talking about. Yeah. And basically, he says, the topics of Lord Krishna are so auspicious that they purify the speaker, the hearer, and the inquirer. They are compared to the Ganges waters, which flow from the toe of Lord Krishna. Wherever the Ganges waters go, they purify the land and the person who bathes in them. Similarly, Krishna Katha, or the topics of Krishna, are so pure that wherever they are spoken, the place, the hearer, the inquirer, the speaker, and all concerned become purified. So, this is the purpose of Krishna consciousness, to purify our desires from desiring sense gratification to desiring Krishna. The desire cannot be stopped. If someone has no desire, they're dead. But the quality of the desire can be changed from sense gratification to serving Krishna with love and devotion. So this is also stated in Srimad Bhagavatam's first canto, second chapter, verse 16. Shushu saho shadadanasya vasudeva kata ruchi syan mahat sevaya vipra punyatirtan sevanat. It's a very nice verse, and it says, one who is engaged in hearing with care and attention about Lord Krishna and renders service to pure devotees who are twice born and cleansed of all vice by service, develops taste to hearing the message of Krishna. So, when we serve devotees who are, let's say, cleansed of all vice by their service, continual service over a long period of time, and we engage in hearing with care and attention, just like right now in the morning, we don't have any kids running around and screaming. We don't have telephones ringing. Well, maybe sometimes, but not much. You don't have a absolute necessity to rush to the office. You don't feel really hungry and you're rested, and therefore the atmosphere is perfect for hearing, and hearing with care and attention, being completely focused on the message of Krishna. And what book are we reading? The Srimad Bhagvatam. What is the subject? Srimad Bhagvatam. It's only Krishna, nothing else. So, and anything else is all dovetailed into Krishna. And any subject in the Bhagavatam is all dovetailed into Krishna. So we can do what's said here, Shushusaho Shadadanasya, to hear, engage in hearing with care and attention only about Krishna and Krishna's message, and developing an affinity, a taste for this hearing on a regular basis. And that taste comes by serving genuine devotees and engaging in devotional service. So Prabhupada says the conditioned life of a living being is caused by his revolting against the Lord. There are men called devas, or godly living beings, and there are men called asuras, or demons, who are against the authority of the Supreme Lord. In the Bhagavad Gita 16th chapter, a vivid description of the asuras is given, in which it is said that the asuras are put into lower and lower states of ignorance, life after life, and so sink to the lower animal forms and have no information of the absolute truth, the personality of Godhead. These asuras are gradually rectified to God consciousness by the mercy of the Lord's liberated servitors in different countries according to the supreme will. Such devotees of God are very confidential associates of the Lord, and when they come to save human society from the dangers of godlessness, they are known as the powerful incarnations of the Lord, as sons of the Lord, as servants of the Lord, or as associates of the Lord. But none of them falsely claim to be God themselves. This is a blasphemy declared by the asuras, and the demoniac followers of such asuras also accept pretenders as God or his incarnation. In the revealed scriptures, there is definite information of the incarnation of God. No one should be accepted as God or an incarnation of God unless he is confirmed by the revealed scriptures. So, this is a lot of precious information. And this hearing with care and attention, that's something that needs to be further explained. Because care and attention happen when there is faith. So one, how does one develop faith? So there's another verse, the second canto, first chapter, second verse. Shrotavyadini Rajendra Nirnam Santi Sahasrasa Apasyatam Atmatatvam Grihesu Grihamedinam. So this says, my dear king, speaking to Maharaj Pariksit, there are many hundreds and thousands of topics for the materialistic person to hear. And Prabhupada says, there's so many novels, books of so-called philosophy, newspapers, cinema magazines. All of this is of great interest to those who are apasyatam atmatattvam, that is, blind to people who are blind to self-realization. And grihesu grihamedinam, those people who are only interested in maintaining the body, wife, children, house, and so on. Because they have no information of the soul, they are talking about the body or something about the mind. One philosopher theorizes something and another philosopher theorizes something else, producing lots of literature that is all nonsensical because it is the result of mental speculation. Now, this is something that I actually experienced. I went through, grade school and then high school, and then I got into college, and I was reading books of philosophy. I couldn't understand a damn thing. I couldn't understand anything. I would read a couple pages of some author who's a famous philosopher, and I couldn't understand it. I mean, I'd go over it. I mean, I understand English, but the way they put the words together and the ideas, it just didn't make sense. And I was always wondering why this is a fact, that I'm not understanding. Although I'm reading it, I'm not really understanding it. There were books about Zen masters, Japanese Zen masters, or Mongolian Zen masters, Mongolian mystics, or Western mystical philosophers, or and then the classical philosophers, Socrates, Plato, all these things. I would read them, and nothing stuck in my mind. And I was always asking myself, how come I can't understand this stuff? Well, when I was introduced to Bhagavad Gita with the help of a devotee, what he was reading and what he was explaining and Prabhupada's purpose, I started understanding what they were talking about. And again, I still couldn't understand. Even then, I went back and looked at these books of philosophy that I had purchased before. Again, I couldn't understand them, right? So then I realized this understanding can only happen if you read something written by a pure devotee. If you read something that's written by some nonsense person, a speculator, it doesn't make sense. It might sound good, but it doesn't make sense. And I don't know if any of you have ever experienced this, but in my case, the worst situation was one time I went to the library of the Indian Embassy in Paris, and I walked in there, and it was full of books about philosophy. There was books about Nyaya, and books about Vaisheshika, and there was books about Karma Mimamsa, and there were big books, there were thick books, and I would open up one, let's say Karma Mimamsa, read a few, 1 or 2 pages, and I would close it because I said it doesn't make sense, right? and then I realized, India has all these books of philosophy, and none of it makes sense to me. I don't know. Have you ever read these big books about, Karma Mimamsa, Nyaya? No? Well, I was always interested in philosophy, but when I went into that library and I started looking at all those books, I realized I'm not going to have anything to do with India because it's one big hodgepodge. Fortunately, I met a devotee who could explain Bhagavad Gita, Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita to me, and that made sense. And this is the first time a book of philosophy made sense to me.
Our own experiences. I mean, even our own experience, even Bhagavad Gita, reading by yourself,
Yeah.
Versus hearing, through a pure devotee,
Yeah.
is a huge difference. I mean, we've since 2007 or so, we've been at least exposed and attending some sort of lessons and so on. But I think as we started hearing directly from you since about 2016 or so, we could see it's a shift in the consciousness. It's not just words, it's not just meaning, it's a shift in the consciousness. I think that's the fundamental difference.
Yeah, I see what Prabhupada is saying here says that he says one philosopher theorizes something and another philosopher theorizes something else, producing lots of literature that is all nonsensical because it is the result of mental speculation. That hits the nail right on the head. So there's these thick books, they're big like this, hundreds, thousands of pages, and most of it is just speculation. It's nonsense. It takes you can't figure out what it's leading to. What it leads to is atheism and sense gratification. It's just the opposite of what it should lead you to, and it inflates your false ego. I remember one time I had a friend of mine, and he was explaining to me Buddhist philosophy, and he drew a what do you call that?
A sine wave.
A line, yeah, sine. What do you call it?
Sine wave?
Yeah, sine wave. He said life is like that. Sometimes you're down here, sometimes you're up there, then you come back down again, then you go back up again. He explained Buddhist philosophy to me like that. And I said, oh, really? He said, yeah, isn't it wonderful? I said, I don't know if it's wonderful. I said, it's interesting, but I don't know. I mean, it didn't make sense. What is life? You go up and down all the time. Well, what's the purpose then? So this is what's going on, and it's not surprising that kids that are educated, they give up on philosophy, and they just talk about, mathematics and physics and things like that, because that makes a little bit of sense, right? It doesn't give you any knowledge about God. Right. But as soon as you start reading the speculators' books about spiritual life, it just doesn't make sense. There's so many different theories, one theory and another theory, and each theory is different. And you finally, if you become an expert at explaining the speculative theories, you end up being cynical. You say, Plato says this, and Nietzsche says that, and Sartre says this, and Schopenhauer says that, and you become an expert in regurgitating the speculations, right?
And also, I don't think anybody was able to follow these philosophies to put into practice.
No, they speak the philosophy, and then they go and have sense gratification. So what did they learn? They didn't learn anything. They learned to play a game. But the end of the game is sense gratification. It's not purification. See? And it just inflates their false ego. So Krishna consciousness is based on humility and tolerance. Humility and tolerance. The more you hear, the more humble you get, and you realize the greatness of God and our insignificance. But at the same time, in order to regularly hear, you have to tolerate all the problems in material life so that you can keep your mind focused on progressive Krishna consciousness. Most people get stuck on problems, and they become resentful and angry, or jealous, or envious. So they get stuck. Their progress is stymied due to being too involved in materialism. It's just like when you look at the history of Trump when he became president. It was basically a roller coaster, going up and down, up and down. Every day something else happens, and it's sometimes it's positive, and then the next day something is terribly negative, and it was just up and down all the time. There's no steadiness, no progressiveness. It was just going forward and backward, forward and backward. So that's the material life, because the topic is not Krishna. But if the topic is Krishna, it just keeps going up and up. You get deeper and deeper realizations when you hear this knowledge that's spoken by genuine devotees, and they're basically, what do? They basically repeat what the acharyas have said. So here it says that because people have no knowledge of the soul, or very little knowledge of the soul, they're just basically talking about the body. I went on a vacation. I had some acupuncture the other day. Oh, I found this person who gives a massage, this really great massage, And oh, I just bought this new car. It's so comfortable, and everything is so nice in it. And everything is about sense gratification and the body, right? They're talking about, I invested in stocks, I'm going on a vacation, I fell in love with this person, I bought a new house, my kids just passed the SAT, one kid's getting into Yale and the other one's getting into Stanford, and then this. It's all about the body. Nothing about the soul. So then also in the so Prabhupada says the Srimad Bhagavatam states that the first requirement for achieving samadhi is shraddha, or faith. The Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya 2262 defines shraddha as follows: Shraddha sabde visvasakaya surida nischai Krishna bhakti kaila sarvakarma kritahai. When you firmly believe that by becoming a devotee of Krishna, you will achieve all perfection, that is shraddha, genuine faith. At the end of his instruction in Bhagavad Gita 1866, Krishna says, Sarvadharmam prityaja mamekam saranam vraja aham tvam sarvapapebhyo moksisyami mahasuchaha. Voluntarily surrender unto me, and I will take charge of you. I will protect you from all sinful reactions. Do not worry. When one accepts this instruction and surrenders to Krishna immediately, without consideration, that is shraddha. That is faith. When you have such faith and you surrender to Krishna, you become a muni or mahatma, a great-minded soul endowed with knowledge and detachment. Tat shraddhadana munayo jnana vairagya yuktaye. The aim of the human life is to acquire knowledge and detachment. Knowledge and detachment. Knowledge alone is useless. See, that's the point. Knowledge alone is useless. All this knowledge that you learned in high school and college, how much of it do you actually use? Maybe 10%. Like, for example, I studied so much mathematics. The only thing I ever use mathematically is a simple equation. Like, you know three things, and one thing is x. So by rearranging the x equals something, you can find out what x is. That's the only thing I actually use from all the mathematics I studied. Now, let's say you're an engineer. Yeah, you'll be using a lot more mathematics because you get that specific education. But let's say you got a degree in mathematics, but you became a businessman. So you use some math, not a lot. You use some math in your business. You have to have accounting and things like that. So you know how to add and subtract and multiply and divide. But that's mostly what you do. You don't have to get into all this complicated mathematics. You see. So here it says that knowledge alone is not enough. It's actually useless. One must also have detachment. Therefore, Sripad Sankaracharya, the founder of the Mayavada school, told his followers, first become a sannyasi, a renunciate, then you can speak. So one who is actually a jnani, a wise man, must also be a vairagi, one who has given up all attachment to material things. So most of the people that are famous for their knowledge are not vairagis. They're big sense gratifiers, and they make their money by doing seminars. How to make money and win friends, how to deal with stress, how to be successful flipping houses, how to invest in the stock market and become a millionaire in 3 weeks. They're out there giving all these seminars. Thousands of people are doing it, and then you have all these counselors and people that will tell you how to become happy, how to have a successful marriage, how to do this, how to do that, how to raise your kids. So they have knowledge, but they're not vairagis. And whatever knowledge they're going to give you, basically, it's going to be useless unless you also become detached. See? So, I know even devotees, they'll come up to me and say, Prabhu, I listen to your classes, but I just can't control my anger. I get angry at my husband sometimes. I get angry at my kids. Well, because that anger is coming from attachments. See? And when you don't get what you want, you get angry. So how to become detached, how to become a vairagi, that means you completely surrendered to Krishna. You have complete faith that Krishna will protect you because he promises that. And therefore, you limit your sense gratification to what is permitted by Krishna consciousness, and you maximize your service as much as possible without violating your obligations, and therefore you become happy, right? But if you have these strong attachments, even though you're hearing the philosophy, basically the philosophy is going in one ear and out the other. And most people think, I need knowledge. But no, you need knowledge and detachment. Right? So, and therefore Prabhupada says that, and the result of this faith is surrender, knowledge and detachment. Pasyanti atmani chatmanam. One sees the Paramatma, the Supreme Soul, within his mind and within himself. This is confirmed elsewhere in the Srimad Bhagvatam 12:31:1. Dhyana avastita gatena manasa pasyanti yam yoginaha. The perfect yogi always sees the Supreme Personality Godhead within himself. The perfect yogi is one who has prema, pure love for Krishna. As the Brahma Samhita 5:38 states, Premanjana Churita Bhakti Vilochanena Santak Sadeva Hidayesu Vilokayanti. The devotee who has anointed his eyes with the ointment of love of Godhead always sees the beautiful blackish form of Krishna within his heart. We cannot imagine how beautiful Krishna is. It is said that Krishna's body is more beautiful than millions of cupids. Kandarpa Koti Kamaniya Visesa Sobam, Brahma Samhita 5:30. Cupid is very beautiful, but even if you place millions of cupids together, their beauty cannot compare with Krishna's. These things cannot be understood unless one's eyes are smeared with the ointment of love. So these are all precious instructions that Prabhupada has given us, but to actually make this a reality in one's life, that requires strong faith. And Prabhupada says, service begins with faith. Srisusoho Sradadanasya Vasudeva Kata Ruchi. Without faith, you cannot make any progress. As Srila Rupa Goswami has written, Ado Shraddha, the beginning of spiritual life, is faith. That faith can be simply some appreciation for Krishna consciousness. Without even taking up the process of Bhakti Yoga, if a person thinks, these Hare Krishna people are very nice, such appreciation will give him a touch of spiritual life, and the development of this appreciation by degrees will be the development of his spiritual life. So everything begins if people come to the conclusion, oh, these Hare Krishna people, they're very nice. So that is the beginning of faith. You see. So, devotees should be always on alert to for what's called first impressions. First impressions are lasting impressions. So if one comes to the temple and nobody talks to them, and nobody smiles, nobody says, hello, my name is so-and-so, what's your name? And I'm so happy to meet you. Thank you very much for coming to the temple. And I can show you around if you want. And here's where you put your shoes. And here we have our classrooms for our kids. And here's a list of all the activities in the temple. And we can go upstairs and have darshan. I'll explain to you who the deities are. This is our guru, Srila Prabhupada, the founder of ISKCON, the International Society of Krishna Consciousness. And over here, here's a free calendar for you. And here's a nice book for your kid. So all of a sudden, a person walks in the temple and someone's showing them around and treating them like a family member and giving them gifts. Giving them gifts. They're not saying, well, you know, you can buy this book for $8. No, they're giving the $8 book away, you know, for their kids, because the mantra is, if you catch the kids, you catch the parents. If you catch the parents, there's no guarantee you'll catch the kids. Because every parent is interested in their kids. So if you try and convince the parent to buy the Bhagavad Gita, they might buy it, but there's no guarantee they're going to read it. But if you give them a children's book about Krishna with little stories in it, there's almost guaranteed they're going to read it to their kid, right? And then the kid's going to get turned on a little bit to Krishna consciousness, and the parent learns something by reading the kid's book. They learn more by reading the kid's book in the beginning than by reading the Bhagavad Gita. Because Bhagavad Gita is a big book like this, with 900 pages, or I don't know, 700 pages. Who's going to read that? They barely read the news on the internet or the newspaper, right? And they're going to read a big book like that full of philosophy? Very little chance. Very little chance. But if you give them a kid's book that's very simple, with stories in it, and maybe some coloring book, right? So they'll read that to their kid. It gives them a chance to connect with their child based on Krishna consciousness. Okay? So all these things have to be explained to the devotees, so they wake up and they say, okay, wait a minute, what have I been doing all this time? Here this person is sharing all these secrets of how to connect with people. And see, the thing is this, before we built this temple, we were spending a lot of money to build it, and we were raising a lot of money. And some people were saying, why are we doing this? You know, the little house we have is just fine. We don't need to have a big temple. I said, no, you don't understand. I said, what do you mean we don't understand? We're happy with this little temple here. We don't, why are you doing an Andamela? There's so much money, you know, and what happens if it rains? Then you lose all the money. I said, yeah, that's true. Well, we have to take a risk. So well, no, we don't want to take a risk. I said, okay, then don't interfere. And if it fails, then you know whose fault it is. My fault. Let me tell you, when we started the first, we didn't call it Nanda Mela, we called it the Kumbh Mela. That first one, almost 80% of devotees refused to cooperate, because they thought it was a waste of time and money, and it was going to divert our attention from building the temple. It's only in the last week, right before, when they saw all the preparation we made for it, and they suddenly realized, wait a minute, this thing's going to be big. Then a few of them jumped on the wagon and helped out. And then when the actual day came and they saw tons of people coming, then they understood what was happening. Now, if it did rain, and it was supposed to rain that weekend, it would have been a disaster, right? Because we spent $80,000 to put on that first festival. So it was a huge risk. But Krishna protected us. And because of that first Kumbh Mela, we were able to raise, $3.5 million. It's a huge amount of money, right? And we were able to finish the temple. So you see, you have to have faith, and without that faith, nothing is going to happen, because you won't take a risk. You won't take a risk. So faith can be simply some appreciation for Krishna consciousness without even taking up the process of Bhakti Yoga. If a person thinks these Hare Krishna people are very nice, such appreciation will give a person a touch of spiritual life, and the development of this appreciation by degrees, in other words, little by little, by continual contact with devotees, and every time there's a contact, it's, again, very nice, and the people are nice, and they're giving, and it's a pleasing, experience, and I'm feeling peace coming to the temple. I don't see people arguing. I see everyone running around cooperating, right? They're not arguing here. There's no screaming. And the other thing is, they come with kids, and their kids behave nicely, but if they see that the devotee kids are running around wild, they'll say, wait a minute, I'm not going to bring my kid here. Look, these are kids of these devotees. These are big devotees, right? They never wash the dishes. They all have me washing the dishes. That means they're big devotees, right? And they don't wait in line to get prasadam like everyone else. They just go in the kitchen and serve themselves. So those are big devotees. But wait a minute. But the kids are running around wild and screaming. And my kid wants to run with them too, but I'm holding him back. I'm not coming here anymore. Because they saw a disconnect, Devotees are running into the kitchen and serving themselves, right? And they have to wait in line. The kids of the devotees are running around wild, right? And they're holding their kids back, and those kids, they want to run around wild with the other kids. So finally they said, my kids are not going to learn anything here. They're going to learn how to be wild like the devotee kids. You see? All these things people see, and they make decisions based on it. If someone's a pure devotee, but they can't control their kids in the temple, they're just letting them run around wild, then someone who comes from a decent family, they say, I'm not bringing my kids here. I don't want my kid to end up like that. So, it says, Prabhupada says, the next stage is sadhu sangha, association with devotees of Krishna. In this stage, one may think, all right, the devotees are chanting Hare Krishna and talking of Krishna. Let me go to the temple and sit down and hear. The third stage is bhajana kriya, beginning to perform the processes of devotional service. And after one has been associating nicely with devotees and engaging in devotional service for some time, chanting the Hare Krishna mantra and observing the regulative principles, one will naturally feel, why not become a disciple of a spiritual master? Therefore, we receive many applications. Srila Prabhupada, kindly accept me as your disciple. So this is a whole process. So people are coming here because they think the devotees are nice people, and they're giving, and they're kind, and they're peaceful, and they're happy, and they cooperate with each other. They don't argue and fight. There's no politics in the temple. As soon as politics enters into the temple, there's chaos. And people, when they hear that, say, well, it's just another Hindu temple. I'm not going there. I can see the same thing in any other temple. You know, you go in there and there's politics. So it's not really a temple. It's a house. It's the Lok Sabha. It's a branch of the Lok Sabha in the United States, you know, where everyone's fighting and arguing. Okay, so we'll stop right there now and continue again tomorrow. Are there any questions? Yeah, regulating the atmosphere of the temple is a very important thing. We have to understand what we're doing and how people perceive us. And if we put on well, it has to be natural, but if the atmosphere is peaceful, it's loving, it's giving, and people come and it relieves their anxiety from the material world, and it's very beneficial for their children. Every parent is concerned about their children. So when they come and all of a sudden, right away, the kid gets a goodness cookie with some wisdom. One who does good is never overcome by evil. They say, wow, this is different. Well, yesterday, a lady told me, said, you know, I never let my kid eat cookies outside because there's always some junk in it. But this one, my kid can eat. Thank you very much. You see? That's why the ingredients have to be it's very important. And by the way, that Russian lady who came yesterday, she's going to help get even better ingredients, right? Yeah. You see, but not only that, the high quality, much higher quality. Yeah, stone ground by one lady in, I don't know, Snohomish or something, and she grows everything organically, and it's very clean and so forth. You see, once you get into quality sells, right? And not that we're selling anything, but quality is something that convinces people I'll go the extra mile so that my kid gets the top quality. So that's what we should be doing. Everything we do should be first class. You know, it might be little things like a cookie, but it should be first class. So if one little thing is first class, then everything else that comes should also be first class. That way, people say, this is my temple. I've been looking for this temple. I've been looking for this community. And I'm going to come here. Haribo. All glories to Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Yeah. Oh, the homework. I'm sorry. Yes, you're right. Thank you for reminding me. Okay. So you did homework? Okay. Tell me what you did. Come over here. The homework for tomorrow is you look up the verse Shraddha Sabde Vishwasakai Surida Nishchai Krishna Bhakti Kaila Sarmakrita Hai. This is a very important verse, and it is Srimad Bhagvatam. 1 second, I'll tell you. Srimad Bhagvatam. Where is that? Srimad Bhagvatam. Srimad Bhagvatam. Okay, go ahead. You read that.
So, yesterday yesterday's homework was nice karma
Oh, yeah, that's right.
and niskarma. And the the difference between pure devotee and karma yogi, jnana yogi, hatha yogi.
Yes.
So, pure devotee, the special qualification of the pure devotee is that is always thinking of Krishna without deviation and without considering the time or place. There should be no impediments. He should be able to carry out his service anywhere and at any time. Some says that the devotee should remain in the holy places like Vrindavan or some holy town where the Lord lived. But a pure devotee can live anywhere and create the atmosphere of Vrindavan by his devotional service. It was Sri Advaita who told Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, "Wherever you are, my dear Lord, there is Vrindavan," as indicated by the words Satatam.
What?
Satatam, as indicated by the words
Satatam kirtayantamam?
regularly or every day, which means always, regularly and every day. A pure devotee constantly remembers Krishna and meditates upon him. These are qualifications of the pure devotee. And this nice karma, any action does not yield or does not produce any good or bad results. That's nice karma.
Yeah.
Niskarma.
That's the same as akarma.
Akarma. Okay. Allah, right. And niskama is one who has no material desire.
Perfect.
And for karma yogi, one who offers his results of the work to the Lord.
Yes.
And jnana yogi is cultivating knowledge and understanding that the Supreme Lord is the proprietor and enjoyer of everything, including the results of our prescribed duties.
Good.
And hatha yogi is to train the mind. For the people who are in bodily conception of life, to train them how to focus and meditate upon the Supreme Personality of Godhead, they can practice different sitting postures or the positions, controlling the mind and controlling the senses. This is in the class of lecture of Srila Prabhupada Bhagavad Gita 7.1, and then it is explained in Srimad Bhagvatam 12 canto 13 chapter, first verse.
Great.
And the
Very
pure,
good.
And the pure devotee is in the Bhagavad Gita 8.14, right, Rama?
Right.
Yesterday we were teaching that. Down below.
Yes. Perfect. Thank you. Haribol. Very well done. Okay, so homework for tomorrow, you look up this verse, Shraddha Sabde Vishwasakaya, Madhya Lila, Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Lila 22.62. And explain this verse, and in other words, when you firmly believe that by becoming a devotee of Krishna, you will achieve all perfection, that is Shraddha, genuine faith. At the end of his instruction, and also it's in the Bhagavad Gita, 4th chapter. So you take these two references and you can explain what is Shraddha. 4th chapter, verse 39. Okay. So that's homework for tomorrow. Haribol.